Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Exit polls in Germany suggest Angela Merkel's party will once again be the largest in parliament after nationwide elections. That means she looks set for a fourth term as Chancellor. The Christian Democrats came out ahead of the second-place Social Democratic Party, but with a significantly reduced level of support. Perhaps the shock of the day was the success of the Alternative for Germany, now on course to become the first far-right movement to enter the Bundestag since the Second World War. Well, our Berlin correspondent Jenny Hill is in the German capital for us tonight. Jenny.
Yes, good evening. This election will go down in the history books for two reasons. Angela Merkel has won a fourth term, but this is her worst ever election result. And the far right now has seats in the German parliament. For post-war German politics, this is an unprecedented night.
Angela Merkel knew she'd win this election, but it's not the victory she'd hoped for. Exit polls suggest support for her party is now lower than it's ever been under her leadership. A verdict perhaps on her decision to open Germany's doors to hundreds of thousands of refugees.
Let's not beat about the bush. Of course we'd hoped for a better result. But let's not forget we've just had a very challenging 4 years. That's why I'm happy to say we achieved the strategic goal of our campaign. We are the strongest party.
For Mrs. Merkel, a well-trodden path, arriving to vote with her husband today. Not so much a victory march, just the quiet confidence of a woman who's done 12 years in the job. Even so, they still checked her ID, just in case. Mrs. Merkel casts herself as a symbol of stability, security in a shifting world.
For many, a vote for Angela Merkel is a vote for the status quo. Her campaign has focused on her familiarity, her experience, and yet, it seems, that alone is no longer enough.
Because this is today's real success story. AfD, anti-Islam, anti-immigrant, anti-Euro, is now part of the German establishment. What is the political norm elsewhere in Europe was unthinkable here. Not anymore.
It's a huge success. It will change the political system in Germany, and it gives back the voice to the opposition, which has not taken place in the German parliament in recent years.
It's a profound shift in post-war German politics. Today, running together in Berlin. But in the heart of this country, there's division, discontent.
It's the NSDAP, wie bei Adolf Hitler.
They are like the Nazis under Hitler. I was born in '39. I'm a war child. I grew up in the ruins. And now we get this again. They are criminals. I've always voted CDU, and I want Angela Merkel again.
It's difficult. There aren't many alternatives to Angela Merkel.
Alternativen gibt zu Angela Merkel.
Es ist sehr wenig eigene Aktivität da.
She doesn't do much on her own initiative. She reacts a lot to what others do, and that's a kind of stagnation.
Angela Merkel must now find a coalition partner. Don't expect AfD to be included. That the parties in parliament at all horrifies the political mainstream. Exhausted, bruised, the end of a long campaign. Angela Merkel's Conservatives may be the winners, but this doesn't feel much like victory. Jenny Hill, BBC News, Berlin.
So, what's to be made of the success of the far-right AfD? Our Europe correspondent, Damien Grammaticus, joins us now. Damien, you're at the headquarters. Just sum up the significance of the AfD actually winning federal seats.
Yes, this is a very, very important moment in German politics. At the AfD headquarters here, there were cheers when the result came out. The AfD leader, Alexander Gauland, came on stage and he said, "We're going to hunt Mrs. Merkel down and get our country back." Now, it is a divisive result in many ways because this country has a long and very, very difficult history of right-wing, extreme right-wing nationalism. We've had some protesters out on the street, a small group of left-wings shouting, saying the party there's Nazis in this party and they don't want to see this in Germany. But let's get it in perspective. Germany now has 10 to 13% of AfD representatives. Angela Merkel, from a European point of view, is back as Chancellor. That anchor of stability at the centre of the EU is back, and that will be welcome news in many EU capitals. What it will mean, though, is Angela Merkel faces a long period of coalition talks and coalition building here that will divert her attention. So slow progress on reforms in Europe. And for Brexit, well, no change. Don't expect Germany to cut any special deals for the UK after this result, because all the main parties, and Angela Merkel in particular, will pursue the path they are on, saying the UK has to honour its commitments, pay its bills, before it can move on to discussing any sort of future deal with the EU, and they will stick to that.
OK. Damien, thank you. Damien Grammaticus there, live in Berlin.
Now, the polls closed just over an hour ago. An official result is not expected for a few days, but the official projections show that Angela Merkel will indeed secure an historic fourth term, but with her power base eroded by a surge in support for the hard right. Exit polls show that her party, the CDU, took 32% of the vote, whilst its governing partner, the Social Democratic SPD, polled 20%, a poor performance by both major political parties. The Greens, the Free Democrats and the left parties all polled around 10%, but the far-right AfD looks to have taken more than all of them, 13% of the vote, meaning they will be represented in the Bundestag very prominently. Crowds are celebrating at Mrs. Merkel's campaign headquarters, but this has taken the shine off her victory and exposed some of the deep fissures running through German society. It was highly inconvenient for Berlin to hold its marathon on the same day as the election, but it was convenient for mining metaphors. The lead of an East African runner was as inevitable as the victory of Chancellor Merkel. 12 years in power, plus another 4, is a marathon of survival in its own right. And then there's the tedious slog of the campaign. But don't be fooled. The last few days have got the political pulse racing. This election was supposed to bleat with reassurance and continuity, but it may be about to reshape Germany's political landscape like no other. Yes, the woman they call Mummy, Mutti the matriarch, strolled to her neighbourhood polling station, confident in the knowledge that she will continue to run Germany and dominate Europe. But with what coalition? And has she unwittingly allowed a new force to rise in German politics? Someone is miffed with Mutti. We're driving through the drab cement canyons of Marzahn-Hellersdorf on the outskirts of Berlin. The East Germans built this as a paradise for the country's intellectual elite. It didn't quite work out that way. This is the kind of place that takes the fun out of a fun fair. It is here, in the former East, that affluent Germany has its own left behind, weighed down by high unemployment, low wages, low opportunities, and rising resentment against just about everyone, but especially foreigners. And when you ask them how they voted, Kann ich Sie fragen, wie Sie gewählt haben? They tell you to mind your own business. We went to a nearby polling station in a rundown school. Here they take voter secrecy to a whole new level. Perhaps it's the collective memory of East Germany and the Stasi, where no vote was ever really secret. Outside, I try my luck with my own exit poll. Kann ich Sie fragen, wie Sie gewählt haben?
Nein.
Nicht. Some of that secrecy, the pollsters suspect, may have to do with a party that's tonight become the third force in German politics, the Alternative for Germany, the party behind these posters. Burkas, no, we dig bikinis. Or, New Germans, we can make those ourselves. The slogans were dreamt up by the same firm that helped Trump get elected last year. This is the AfD's slick campaign video, released only yesterday. A schmaltzy ode to Germanness, from a party that is hard right, virulently anti-Islam, and uses the kind of vernacular that hasn't been heard in mainstream German politics for a very long time. Germany has shown that it is not immune to the kind of populism that has haunted mainstream parties elsewhere in Europe. It has just caught a milder dose of it so far. Well, joining me now is Leonard Novi, a political scientist at the Institute for Media and Communications Policy in Cologne. Welcome to the programme, Leonard. Now, Angela Merkel has just spoken, apparently, and she said that she acknowledges the victory, but she wants to win back those voters, 8%, 9% of voters that deserted her party and probably went to the Alternative for Germany party. What happened there?
Well, it's a really historical night. People said this whole thing would be boring. The campaign might have been boring. It's a historical result, and it's very difficult for her. I mean, she lost, and recent polls say she lost about 1 million to the AfD, and those are people who might not even be directly affected by the refugee crisis, but who have an abstract fear, an abstract feeling of insecurity that apparently both the CDU and the Social Democrats didn't really manage to address, and that'll be the huge challenge in the future.
And also on social issues, she moved a bit too far to the left, didn't she?
That's it. Yeah. We never had a far right or hard right party in the parliament for good reason, because the CDU sort of covered that. They said there shouldn't be a party to the right of us. Now there is, and many people say it's Angela Merkel is to blame because she indeed put her party to the centre left. Yeah, indeed.
I heard her at a rally just the other day, and she said more or less, "I don't regret letting 1 million refugees and migrants into this country in 2015." Do you think she regrets it now?
I don't think she does. She has a strong moral compass. I do believe that she strongly believes her decision is right, and that she now sort of takes up the challenge. But it'll be difficult, particularly if you look at the constellation ahead. I mean, a so-called Jamaica coalition with two partners and a sister party in Bavaria.
The Greens and the Free Democrats.
Exactly, the sort of resurrected Free Democrats. We don't quite know what to make of them. The Greens, and she has a sister party in Bavaria which lost dramatically and which will give her a hard time.
So coalition politics. We're not going to have a grand coalition. Apparently, the SPD has ruled that out. They want to be the opposition party now. Being in government with the CDU doesn't really work for them. But even the coalition that she hopes to cobble together won't be quite as stable.
No, it'll be difficult. We've never had it before. The Greens are they're probably more easy to reckon with. People say that Merkel wanted that. That's her project, to have a coalition with the Greens. With the Free Democrats, we don't quite know, particularly also with regard to European policies.
And just finally, Leonard, I mean, these posters that we showed, which are, by the way, everywhere in Berlin and all over the country, they're pretty disgusting, aren't they?
They are, yeah. And we've seen what other European countries have seen over the past years. The AfD has been tremendously successful and effective, both on social media and in their broader communication. They had a clear narrative, a threat and a victim and a villain, just like Trump and many others, and it worked.
Leonard Novi, thanks very much. It is now literally raining on Angela Merkel's parade here in Berlin.